The number here is 133353.
We have got Manny Conditsis. He is Senior Trial Advocate and Accredited Specialist in Criminal Law. And why he's joined us this morning, joins the program quite a few times, because the driver of the bus that crashed and killed 10 people and injured 25 in the Hunter Valley has reached a plea deal to have the charges dropped.
Yeah, when we saw this news, I mean, I obviously followed the story. Such a tragedy after the wedding with the bus crash. And we saw this story going around the news and I was like, charges dropped. How does that work? It seems a little confusing. And so Manny is the man in the know to try and explain to us what's gone on.
Good morning, Manny.
Good morning, Paddy. Good morning, Maz.
Yeah, so how does this work? I know a lot of people would have said the same thing. What was the situation in this case?
Okay, so the first thing to bear in mind is that for charges like this that are described as indictable charges, there's a process that one has to go through from between the time of charging through to the time of trial. That process, as legislated by Parliament, requires negotiations or discussions between the parties at an appropriate time, well after the brief of evidence is served so the parties know what the evidence is, as to whether there is any prospect of doing a deal. Now, let me explain it this way. It is not uncommon for police to charge offences that are sometimes at the top of the range of what's available for the allegations of fact that have occurred. One of the reasons they may do that is with a view to, down the track, having discussions and negotiations with the lawyers for the accused to plead guilty to some lesser type charges. Here we had at the top manslaughter charges, which were ultimately withdrawn in the deal. Why were they withdrawn? They were withdrawn on the basis that the driver pleaded guilty to 10 charges relating to dangerous driving caused death. Each carry with them 10 years imprisonment. And I can come back to that if you want to know. But so the bottom line is this. Sometimes charges are at the top end and there are charges toward the middle end, and after negotiations, bearing in mind the prosecution always has the onus of proving the top-end charges or any charges beyond a reasonable doubt. If there's any doubt in their mind whether that they can do that, they're obviously wise to take pleas of guilty to lesser charges.
It kind of feels when you explain it that way, Manny, that it is a case of semantics in the system. But what does that do for the victims' families? Like, I can't imagine if your loved one has been one of the victims of this bus crash, which was one of the deadliest in history, that having these, having it dropped down from this to this because it means that in the system, that doesn't help. I don't think it doesn't help the families moving on.
No, look, you make a point, and let's not. Well, I can completely agree with what you guys have categorised it, or how you've categorised it, as a complete tragedy. And look, it's a tragedy all round, because there are not only people that have died, but there are people that have suffered grievous bodily harm. But let me put it this way: if serious charges, but let's say the manslaughter charges were adhered to, the DPP hypothetically said, we're not doing a deal, we're going to go to trial on these manslaughter charges. If ultimately they could not prove those charges and the driver was acquitted because of legal reasons, reasons, but legal reasons, how would the family then feel?
Yeah, no,
right,
that's,
I get you.
Yeah, that is a great point too.
Ultimately, they've really got to take to court what they think they can get. And that is just the process.
It's so tricky, isn't it?
So the driver was taken into custody, and when will the sentence be handed down for the charges that he's agreed to?
All right. Firstly, let me explain to people why the driver was taken into custody when he hasn't actually been sentenced. There's a law that says, upon a plea of guilty being entered, if the judge at that time is satisfied that it is inevitable that the person will get a full-time prison sentence, then their bail can be revoked. So the DPP made an application for his bail to be revoked, and that's what happened here. From where we are now to get to the period of sentence, it depends on a number of variable factors, so I can't be precise about it, but I would say you're looking at 3 months, 4 months, somewhere in that range, depending on what medical/expert evidence needs to be obtained to be put before the sentencing judge.
Right.
Okay.
Well, you've cleared it up because when we were watching it last week,
it's very confusing. Obviously, we don't have, any idea.
the legal background.
Yeah.
So you've
But thank
cleared that
you.
up. Manny Conditsis, senior trial advocate and accredited specialist in criminal law. Thank you for helping us out.
Always happy to chat with you guys.